Night Terrors was created as a result of writer Mark Gatiss immersing himself in his first love, horror movies. It's a thoughtful update of several key horror themes: haunted houses, the creepiness of innocent toys, aliens living among humans, with a few personal phobic touches, and in the eerie metamorphosis from human to peg doll, one of the uncanniest transformations in Doctor Who's long and magnificent history of uncanny transformations. Here are a few things to keep an eye out for the next time you watch. The episode is available on iTunes and Amazon. Mark Gatiss came to his third Doctor Who script after The Idiot's Lantern and Victory of the Daleks with a concept inspired by his time working on a three-part horror series for the BBC called Cricket House. One of his ideas had been to have a modern home be possessed in the vein of the classic haunted house. Stephen Moffat liked this idea, and asked Mark to adapt it for Doctor Who. Potential locations included a hotel hosting a psychiatric conference, in which the phobias of the attendees would influence the ghostly apparitions they had to face. Ultimately, this was felt to be too similar an idea to Toby Whithouse's The God Complex, so Mark concentrated more on irrational childhood fears. He used 3 items from his personal list of phobias in the story: the peg dolls, based on a lifelong aversion to dolls in general, a horror of piles of garbage in bags, and an aggressive gym teacher from his youth, whose domineering persona went into the landlord's parcel. The peg dolls in George Doll's house are based on a type of wooden doll that originated in the Val Gardena in the Alps, and were common to Germany and the Netherlands. These were created using leatherned parts, held together with wooden pegs, hence the name peg dolls, or Dutch dolls. The dolls were sold without clothes, with the idea that children could make their outfits from scraps of leftover material, adding to their slightly homemade appearance. Mrs. Rossiter says she can go up and down them stairs like Sherpa Tenzing, a reference to Tenzing Norgay, the Nepali mountaineer who was one of the first 2 people to have reached the summit of Mount Everest, with Edmund Hillary on the 29th of May 1953. As this story was originally intended to form part of the first block of Season 6, some elements of the continuing story had to be adjusted, given that they formed part of the run-up to A Good Man Goes to War. A scene with Madame Kovarian was taken out, and the Doctor's line "It's good to be all back together again" in the flesh had a double meaning, given that Amy would have been Ganger Amy at that point in the storyline. The Doctor's list of childhood nursery stories includes The 3 Little Santarans, The Emperor Dalek's New Clothes, and Snow White and the 7 Keys to Doomsday. This last one is a nod to a retelling of the story of Snow White that appeared in the 2012 Doctor Who Christmas Annual. The plan had been that the story would be referenced in Night Terrors, then you could read it in the annual. However, Night Terrors was moved to the latter part of Season 6, which meant the story came out first. The title of that story is a further nod to the 1974 stage play Doctor Who and the Daleks in the 7 Keys to Doomsday, written by Doctor Who scriptwriter Terrance Dicks and starring Trevor Martin as the 4th Doctor. The play started its run 2 weeks before Tom Baker was confirmed as the 4th. Also among the cast was former 2nd Doctor companion Wendy Padbury, playing a different companion called Jenny. The story, parts of which were recycled by Terrance in the 4th Doctor TV adventure The Brain of Morbius, was eventually recorded for a 2008 Big Finish audio production. Mark Gatiss put the words "maybe later" into the script. Alex says it to Purcell the landlord is a nod to a shared joke he had with Daniel Mays when the two worked on a BBC comedy thriller called Funland. But it was possibly too subtle, as Mark ruefully told Radio Times. "Maybe later became a bit of a catchphrase for me and Danny when we worked together on Funland, so I added it as a line in Night Terrors. I thought I'd be tickled, he'd remember it at all." While Mark Gatiss' genuine fear of dolls had fueled this story, it's not the first time the Doctor has faced a transformation into toy form. In 2010, the 8th Doctor was changed into a doll by his old foe the Celestial Toymaker in the Big Finish audio adventure Solitaire. Mark Gatiss' original titles for the story were House Call and What Are Little Boys Made Of, the latter taken from the early 19th century English nursery rhyme, which is often attributed to the poet Robert Southey. What are little boys made of? What are little boys made of? Snips and snails and puppy dogs' tails, that's what little boys are made of.